Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our maiden voyage of Your Town at Work. I'm Jerry Slater. We're here at Town Hall, where it's happening, and this is the show all about Norwood, the people who work in our town for our town. And I'm really excited to have as our first guest on our inaugural show, Paul Halakiosis, who is the town planning and economic development director. Did I get that right?
Yes, but you didn't get my name right. It's Halkiotis.
Thank you. And actually, my husband even wrote that down for me, Paul, so I knew I was going to screw it up. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do in that role?
I'm the community planning and economic development director, and so it's kind of like I wear two different hats. The community planning part of it is primarily doing regulatory planning where folks submit applications to develop real estate in the town, and working for the planning board, I assist them in reviewing those plans, coordinating the review process with the other town departments, and after the planning board votes and makes a decision, I write up the decision, and sometimes these special permit decisions are 6 or 7 pages long. As also on the planning end, we get involved with all kinds of different things, environmental issues. There are subsets of planning that involve different disciplines like transportation planning, environmental planning, preservation planning, and economic development planning, to name a few. On the economic development side, I kind of serve sometimes as the first person that a potential business person meets when they come to town hall, that they want to open a business or they're looking for the right location. And I work with them to help them through the regulatory process if they need any types of permits from the town, and assist them in coordinating what they need from the town for all of their permitting so that they can open for business.
So you actually advise both and kind of sit on ad hoc, but really kind of the brains behind both the planning board and economic development committee, right?
Yes, so I work for the economic development committee as well, and my position usually has several masters. I report directly to the planning board. They're an elected board, and we're kind of like a separate little branch of government. But I also work for the Economic Development Committee, providing staff support to them, work closely with John Carroll, the general manager, and I work closely with the selectmen on a variety of different issues.
Planning board, who's on that today? We have
Paul Donahue, Debbie Homewood, Al Poro, Ernie Pachakowski, and Joe Sheehan.
And I know that board in particular has been very much in front of, and I know you personally have been very in front of the CPA.
Yes.
And CPA, why don't you give us a little bit of an update? The town has passed that, so we are technically in CPA now.
Yep, the Community Preservation Act was approved by the town at last year's annual town meeting in May, and that required a ballot question vote at the election that took place last November of 2016. So it was approved pretty handily at both levels, and that showed the support of the voters to create a separate account, a little piggy bank to take money aside and put it in there that could only be used for specific purposes, for historic preservation, for affordable housing, for open space and recreation type projects.
Okay, so we're in CPA, but I guess we're really not able to use funds until 2018? Or?
Yeah, till fiscal year 18. We haven't started to collect the 1% surcharge on the real estate taxes yet. That's going to start on July 1st. This 1% surcharge will appear on residents' tax bills, and that money will be set aside for our community preservation fund. That will also be matched by money that's collected from fees at the County Registry of Deeds in Dedham, where people record plans and deeds. There's a small surcharge fee for that, like $20. and that goes into a separate fund, and the state then disperses this money to communities in the fall of each year. And so we're not expecting to see any CPA revenue coming to the town until about October or November of 2018.
Okay, so then we can start lining those projects up, right?
Yeah, and based on my experience, it will be somewhat controversial. One of the controversial elements of all politics is how people's tax dollars are spent. And this is going to be no different. And based on my experience in the town that I live in, there is controversy as competition over what projects get funded, and there's a wide range of different projects, some of them you wouldn't think of that could be eligible for funding. And this is where the residents get to decide by voting at town meeting what projects to fund and at what level to fund them at.
Yeah, and you know, again, this is going to be, there'll be different groups. I'm just thinking out loud about our town a little bit here, where there'll be different groups, different constituencies, if you will. Do we vote on those at town meeting? Is part of the budget process, or?
Yes, absolutely. And the great thing about the Community Preservation Act is it is totally controlled by the voters at town meeting. Our town meeting members will be the ones that decide. There will be a Community Preservation Committee that is established that will have representation from the town boards and committees that are involved with those four aspects of the program. So there'll be a representative from the Historic Commission, from the Housing Authority, from the Conservation Commission, from the Planning Board, and one person representing Recreation. Most towns have a rec commission. We don't. Our Board of Selectmen wear a Parks Commissioner hat, and so in their role as Parks Commissioners, they will either, one of the selectmen will have a seat on the Community Preservation Committee, or their designee, where they could designate someone to represent the interests of recreation. It could be the recreation director or someone else. So those are the five seats that are required under the law to be appointed by the selectmen representing those groups. The Community Preservation Committee is going to have a 7-member committee, and so there'll be 2 additional seats for at-large residents that are interested in the program. All of this is going to be voted on at the special town meeting coming up on May 8th. I drafted a community preservation bylaw which lays out what I just explained about the composition of the committee, and it also, the bylaw covers what some of the basic responsibilities of the committee are, and this is kind of their core function is they will open up a process to identify what the community preservation needs of the town are. And they'll work with those boards and committees and departments that are involved with historic preservation and open space, conservation, recreation, and affordable housing. And those groups working with the Community Preservation Committee will develop, they call it a needs assessment, a plan or a prioritization of things that we would like to do with respect to historic preservation or with respect to protecting the environment and preserving land for the future. One of the things that was great about getting the CPA approved is that it's going to actually focus and provide funding on some things that the town really hasn't done very much with over the years. And I was very surprised at my first town meeting when somebody got up and said that the town had not purchased any conservation land since the 1970s. And that was really kind of the opposite of what my experience as a planner has been over the years, working for the town of Orleans on Cape Cod, and where I live in Marshfield, where the towns have really focused on preserving land for the future, in some cases to prevent development, where we bought land that was slated for a 40B project, and in Marshfield, I think we bought 3 big chunks of land that were supposed to be, they were already permitted for 40Bs, and the town had the resources of funding for the Community Preservation Act to spend the money to buy that land, to preserve it and protect it from future development. Norwood's a much different town. It's a little more suburban on the urban edge, and it's more developed than these other communities.
Right.
But what most folks don't understand is even though the town is predominantly built out, community preservation money can be used to preserve properties that might have a rundown building on it now, and the building could be torn down, and in back of it there's some open space land that might abut the Ponset River that could eventually be protected and preserved, or part of a park or a trail system. And so the town really hasn't done much with open space protection or with historic protection, preservation. And so this will provide a funding source for some things that really aren't necessarily always the top priority for a community: schools, police, fire, a good water supply. These are the core functions of government, and Norwood has done those functions very well. And now we're hoping that with some additional funding that we'll be able to set aside money to do some of these other things.
Well, we're going to follow that closely, and obviously once the committee is established, definitely follow that closely. Let's pivot a little bit to kind of the other side of your role, which is the economic development. And Economic Development Committee, I know that we've had some TIFs. First of all, can you define what a TIF is for our audience?
TIF is a tax increment financing agreement.
Okay, so that's basically some relief for business coming to town. Is that a simple way to say that?
It's a way to provide some tax relief for projects that involve two things. Involve a project as in a real estate development, an improvement of the property through building a new building or an addition. And that's one element of it. And the second is the project has to create jobs or retain jobs. And so there is a formula for how some tax relief can be provided if a company agrees to do two things: create jobs or preserve jobs. If the company is looking at moving out of town and employs 300 people, and we really don't want to see that company go, it's a tool to convince them to stay. And it's a way to promote development that will increase the town's tax base from an investment in the property.
So so there's an Economic Development Committee. We talked about that before. Now I had to say who was on the planning board. You got to say who's on the Economic Development Committee. For more reasons than one, because I won't be able to go home or continue to do anything with MPA unless you say this.
So the Economic Development Committee chairman is Stephen Costello, your husband Alan Slater, Tom Wynn, Scott Murphy, and Selectman Bill Plasko serve on the Economic Development Committee. They're a high-powered group, and it's interesting working for them because they're all very bright, talented individuals, and they're committed to the town to try to expand the town's tax base, commercial tax base. And as we expand the commercial tax base, it takes the burden off the residential side of the tax base. And they're committed to doing that and to working on creating great jobs locally.
And so we have, I know Moderna was one that we talked a lot. You want to update us on that? That's a TIF that's in play right now, right?
Yeah, there is a building up on the old Polaroid property. It was a large building that Polaroid used, and when they left the site, this 300,000 square foot building was left behind. It had a power plant and like a water tower next to it for part of their processing. We were approached by a biotech company in Cambridge called Moderna. They have about 450 employees, and they are doing research and development to develop new types of therapies and immunizations using messenger RNA. Yesterday I actually read an article about Moderna, and they are doing human trials for using a new vaccine they've developed for bird flu. bird flu was a few years ago, back in 2013. It sent a scare across the world, and there were some cases, and I know some people got seriously sick from that. The article I read yesterday said that the trials, the human trials, have gone well, and this is kind of leading the way for them to develop this new messenger RNA approach to different therapies and immunizations for diseases. So Moderna is in Cambridge, and they are a company that's not that old, and they've been doing this research and development, but now they're in trials testing some of their new drugs on lab animals and on people, and they are anticipating in the next couple of years they're going to have a drug that will be successful, be approved by the FDA, and they will need to manufacture it. And so they looked for a site to manufacturing it. We talked to them and invited them to come to Norwood, and they eventually decided to do that, and we got to one of these tax increment financing agreements with them. They tore off 100,000 square feet of this building. It's now a 200,000 square foot building. It's got FDA approved clean labs so that they'll be able to manufacture their products in these buildings. They've committed to bring in initially about 125 people from Cambridge, and then they're going to hire another 100, 150 people over the next few years as they ramp up the production of their product. So they will create a range of jobs from janitors up to biotech engineers that will hopefully be inventing some of the drugs and treatments that will help our society cure some of these diseases.
Well, and so they're going to be our new neighbors. They'll be bringing employees, a significant number of employees in, who again will be frequenting our restaurants and stores and everything else. So this is pretty exciting, and they're cutting edge. So this.
Yeah, and the ripple effect of a company like this coming to town, you mentioned the restaurants, across the board, these people will be coming to town, they'll be shopping in the retail establishments and eating in our restaurants, they'll be staying in our hotels. They will be entertaining clients that will be flying into our airport, and people commuting and arriving by train into Norwood. And these were all things that we told them would be benefit them as they were making their decision to move to town.
Oh, this is great. All right, now you do a lot of things, Paul, as we're seeing. Also, I know that there's all sorts of permitting and stuff like that you're involved in from a planning standpoint.
Yeah.
All of that, and I think those materials are all now accessible on the Newtown website too.
Yeah, the bread and butter, the core function of what I do is to provide support to the planning board and to be available for the public and for businesses in town that need information about what they need for permits. We get a lot of basic calls about what zoning district am I in, how many housing units can I put on this piece of property, what's the process for me to open up a gas station or a new restaurant. And we provide information to all of those people that come in looking and provide information for the planning board to make educated decisions on the permits that they're involved with issuing.
Super. All right, so I think we'll take a breath. If folks want to find you, how would they do that?
I'm hard to find, actually. We're on the ground floor here at Town Hall. That's where we are filming right now. And you have to go through a little maze, a corridor that you would open the door and hear the furnace going and say, I don't really want to go down that corridor, but there are signs, and the Planning and Conservation Office is here on the ground floor at Town Hall.
Super. And obviously phone, email.
Yep.
Everything else from that.
At the Town Hall phone number, extension 164, and my email is available on the website, and you can email me or call me or stop by.
Super. All right, Paul, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
And now we're going to take a look. I had an opportunity to talk to Kerry McCarthy up at the Senior Center. Well, hi, I'm here with Carrie McCarthy, who's the Executive Director down here at the Senior Center. Carrie, welcome.
Welcome to the Senior Center.
Well, thank you. It's a beautiful day to be here, and a lot of activity going on around us.
Every day,
so,
every day.
That's one of the things of being alive. So, first of all, what is it? I know the Council of Aging is kind of the overlay.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And we have the Council on Aging Board, which is 5 members of the community, and that serve. They're the appointing authority of my position. So they advise and counsel me, and they're a great group that I can reach out to with any problem or any question, and their help. And Tom Tobin is the chairman of the board this time.
Okay.
And Ted Mulvihill is also on the board. So we have different aspects, and the other 3 are members of the Senior Center.
So the Senior Center kind of falls underneath the
Correct. The
Council?
Council on Aging is kind of run by the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. So I just recently returned from the Mass Council on Aging Conference in Falmouth, where we did different workshops on healthy aging and how to run a better senior center and improve your numbers, etc. And we really are one of the popular senior centers in Massachusetts.
Yeah, it seems like it by the flurry of activity.
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
So let's ask a little bit about that. How many seniors do come to the center?
I would say on an average we have over 100 a day.
Wow.
Because some of our exercise classes alone have 50 people in there. So the mornings are the busy time for exercise, and then in the afternoon it's the card players, the socialization, the lunch program. So on average we have 100 seniors a day.
So do you have to be from Norwood? And
No.
how old do you have to be?
You do have to be 60. We really have to stick with that rule because we're so busy, and the programs just couldn't handle people under 60. So you do have to be 60, but we do welcome people from other communities, and a lot of our volunteers are actually from other communities. So we do not discriminate. The only thing, you do have to be from Norwood to use the senior bus.
Okay.
But other than that, no, we welcome all.
Super. And mission, it's more than just social, right?
No, right, absolutely. It's really, our mission is to help any senior healthy age in the community to stay in their home. So from our outreach services to our lunch program, all those different aspects, exercise helps the senior stay in place, and that's really what we, and in Norwood in particular, nobody wants to leave their home, so we really try to help them with different programs, different services, with outreach, the fuel assistance, the financial services through that department, and we really do. And Norwood is great because a senior has a need, we can most of the time find someone to fill that need for them. So our mission really is to keep people at home, keep them socially and physically and psychologically healthy.
Carrie, last question for you. You've been in role a couple of years now?
I've been the director for 2 years, and I was outreach coordinator for 2 years before that.
Okay. How have you seen the changes with the Senior Center and with the seniors coming in? And I'll make it 2-part just to challenge you.
Okay,
and
sure.
How have you adapted to that?
Well, one of the biggest challenges right now is the baby boomers. The baby boomers are coming up. So what can we do as a senior center to encourage those people who think that the senior center is just for old people? If you notice throughout the state, a lot of the senior centers are not being called senior centers anymore. They're having a name, a community center. The Ice Houses in Medfield, I think it is, to try to just encourage that younger age. I think one of the things looking forward is staying open maybe in the evening, because people are still working, they're working later. So that it's going to be a challenge to try to, is there going to be a group of people in 10 years that know how to play cribbage and whist and the games that have been played for years, so it's trying to keep up with programming to entice the younger crowd. Now, one of the favorite stories we have here is when somebody comes in and they're very shy and they're thinking that they're too young for this place, and then they take a class, because the first exercise class is free. So they'll take an exercise class, and then the next week you'll notice that they're here, they took their class, and then they're having coffee. Then in another month you see they're walking out with a group of people to go to lunch. So there's really still, even at this age, new friendships being formed every day here at the Senior Center. So that's great.
That is fabulous. Well, it's a happening place.
It is.
We're going to enjoy meeting the people here and seeing what's going on at the center. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you for coming.
The Norwood Senior Center's mission is to identify the needs and promote services for older adults. The center is open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., and during the summer they remain open until 8 p.m. on Tuesday evenings. To contact them, call 781-762-1201 or visit www.norwoodma.gov.
Norwood Public Access is excited to announce our new mobile site where users can watch live streams of all 3 channels and watch programs on demand. Users can watch NPA TV anytime, anywhere, and share links with family and friends. You may also access NPA TV schedules and search NPA's library of programs. We are excited to provide new ways to experience all public access television has to offer. NPA is proud to be your home for all things Norwood.
The Women's Community Committee is a volunteer, nonprofit organization that's been operating a thrift store since 1927. The thrift shop is open on Monday and Wednesday mornings from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. for donations only. Our retail hours are Wednesday nights from 6 to 8, Thursdays from 9:30 to 3, and Saturdays from 9:30 to 12:30. We accept donations at that time as well. You can friend us on Facebook to keep up to date on our current merchandise and sales. All proceeds are used to provide funds to support worthy programs, services, and charities in Norwood. Help extend a helping hand by donating and shopping at the WCC Thrift Shop. Thank you. You never know what you'll find.
Welcome back to Your Town at Work, and we are here with one of our favorites, Teddy Mulvihill. Every time I say this, I don't have to really say what you do, but you're the Director of Veteran Services.
That is correct, Jackie.
For the town. So, Teddy, we're going to talk about a lot of different things, but let's talk about what you do as the Director of Veteran Services.
Well, thank you, Jeff. First of all, thanks for inviting me on this great new segment. I think it's very exciting, and congratulations. I wish you all success.
Thank you.
Veteran Services in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Back in the 1860s, Union soldiers were standing on the sidewalks and street corners of our Commonwealth, indigent, homeless, begging for alms. The foresight of our great and general court at that time astonishes me to this day, because they passed a law, Massachusetts general law, and then amended it by the Acts of 1947. But the basic premise is no honorably discharged veteran in Massachusetts ever stands in a welfare line. The legislature in the 1860s recognized these guys just saved our nation. They deserve to be treated differently, and so they are. Honorably discharged veterans in Massachusetts are treated with dignity, respect, confidentiality, and personal individual treatment, should they fall on hard times through no fault of their own. We are the undisputed leader, Massachusetts is, in state benefits across America. There is no other state in America that has this program of veterans benefits at a state level. And so we're very proud of that, and my job is to administer Master General Law Chapter 115 as effectively as I can.
Well, and you're meeting with vets, but you're meeting with their families,
Exactly
widows, and everything, so anybody could take advantage of
That's
this.
right, and the motto of our organization is taken from Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural address, where he said, "To care for he who has borne the burden, and for his widow, and for his orphan." So when we talk about the veterans population in Norwood, there's probably a couple thousand veterans, but if you factor in their dependents, their spouses, now we double that number, and their children, we had a few more, 100. So, we're really talking about a segment of the population that is not insubstantial. It's probably, 4,000 citizens in Norwood who are eligible for these benefits.
Wow. And so benefits, when you help with housing,
Yes.
health care, just kind of quickly, and I know it's a lot.
The entire spectrum, as you say.
Okay.
We access the VA federal system for compensation and disabilities. We access the federal system for VA health care. We help them access the federal system for education benefits. And then on the statewide level, housing, direct financial assistance, medical assistance, which has become huge these days. We have a program where we're eligible to repay them for any non-reimbursed medical expenses they may incur. And with the rising cost of healthcare today, some of our clients and seniors are coming in with whopping medical bills on a weekly basis. So that's taken its toll on our budget and had a huge impact on the overall budget for our department. Huge.
Super. All right, so we are sitting in this spectacular room, for lack of a better word, Memorial Hall, if no one knows it. If we were to pick a movie set to film this segment in, it would be this room.
It has been looked at.
It has been looked at. First of all, I'm going to have you talk a little bit about where we're sitting, because I know this is one of your personal favorites.
It's a great thing, and there's a family connection as well. In 1927, construction began with the Building Corporation and through the office of the Board of Selectmen. At that time, my grandfather, Thomas B., was the chairman of the board, and I have a picture of him in my office breaking ground for this building, which is kind of cool. But completed in 1928, this is Norwood Memorial Municipal Building. It's Town Hall, but it's Memorial Municipal Building dedicated to honor the service of Civil War soldiers and World War I soldiers. So as we look in this room right here, Memorial Hall, we honor the service of the men and women who served not just only in World War II, Korea and Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan, but in the anteroom out there we have our earliest veterans, such as Aaron Guild, and pre-colonial wars going back to the 1630s, the Revolution, Civil War, and World War I. So this project to document the names was undertaken by Fred Holland Day, the noted photographer and philanthropist from back in the turn of the century. And he funded that program and did all the research, and it's a great tribute. This room alone, with World War II along the sides, Korea in the back left, Vietnam in the back right, and Iraq and Afghanistan in the lower left, is very, very special. But the most special aspect are the gold plaques up high on the wall. Sadly, those are our fallen heroes, and there's 101 names up there of the men from Norwood who lost their lives in conflict going back to World War I. And we did a little differently, those plaques. We put their branch of service, we put the date of their passing and their age at their passing. So we have a spectrum up there of Robert Vickery from World War I, who was 50 years old when he passed away, to Dickie Murphy from Vietnam, who was 18. So it's very poignant, and it's been a great project. This is a very special room. I grew up here, Jerry, and it wasn't until I became the service officer of the town I even noticed those two statues up there. The guy on the left is the Union soldier, and the guy on the right is the World War I doughboy. And I'm like, oh, Civil War, World War I. So it's pretty special.
Well, thank you for that. And, we couldn't be talking about Memorial Hall without talking about Memorial Day. And when I think about, I'm a proud daughter of a World War II vet, so Memorial Day has always been special for our family. But let's talk about Memorial Day in Norwood.
It's a great event. Obviously, from the brief history of the building we just talked about, you can tell Norwood has always been a patriotic town. Always, generations, since before Norwood became separated from Dedham. So Memorial Day takes on great meaning in our town because it is a day of remembrance and a day of respect. As the great and general court recognized earlier, we were speaking about that, the men and women who serve this nation are directly responsible for the freedoms we enjoy today. You can't put it any more simply than that. If it wasn't for their service and their, they bled for us, they died for us, so that we can enjoy the freedoms we have today. So that's the primary function of our Memorial Day observances, is to recognize their service and recognize their sacrifice. And we have many, many heroes at Highland Cemetery. There's about 5,000 veterans' graves up there that we are responsible for decorating with new flags every year. In fact, Memorial Day used to be called Decoration Day back in the Civil War days. The genesis came from a small southern community where Confederate wives and widows were decorating their soldiers' graves. And far off in the corner was a plot of land for Union soldiers. And the women wondered amongst themselves, well, who will honor them? They're far from family and home. And they decided, we will. So they decorated their graves as well. And it evolved over the years to become Memorial Day placing wreaths and flowers and garlands on the graves of our fallen heroes. And so we have a great program. We start with Mass in the morning. We have a parade that steps off at 10 o'clock and march up to Highland Cemetery. Ceremony is up there at 11. And we have a special event planned after the ceremonies at the cemetery at 1 o'clock on the 29th. We're going to rededicate a bench down at Murphy Field to Vietnam casualty Arthur Hennessy, for whom Hennessy's field is named. His family donated those many acres of land for conservation to the town. And his bench got damaged, and so we're going to rededicate the bench, and family and friends from the Hennessy family will be on hand. It's going to be great.
Oh, wow. So you really have everything. We've got a mass, we've got parades, cemetery, and baseball.
Baseball is the best part. You know, that ties in again to the patriotic nature of our town. American Legion baseball is huge in Norwood. You know, it's an elite level, and we've sponsored teams since 1919. We have 2 teams this year, a junior and a senior Legion team. So it's just great. I mean, it's at the unofficial kickoff of summer with cookouts and burgers and dogs, absolutely. But it's also a greater meaning as well to take time. There is a national pause at 3 o'clock every Memorial Day, just a pause to remember, and a moment of silence. Just remember, you know, while we're enjoying our family and friends and our celebrations, how we got here, and the sacrifice that men and women from not just this town but across America made. So we do have that day. It's great.
Welcome. Well, Teddy, thank you so much. Again, when I think of Patriots, you're the guy.
Now Tom Brady?
Not Tom Brady, not the GOAT. You're the GOAT in my mind.
Oh, jeez. You know what? I love, I'm very excited for your new segment. Congratulations to you and MPA TV. This is going to be a winner and a keeper, and I'm excited to be one of the first guests on your show.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
We're honored to have you with us. And then also honored, because I have to say this because my husband's in this next segment. I recently had an opportunity to sit down with Alan Slater and Tom Maloney to talk about the School Building Study Committee. So let's take a look. Well, I'm here with 2 of the nicest and hardest working public officials we have in town, Selectman Tom Maloney and FinCon Vice Chair Alan Slater, and he is also the chair of the School Facilities Task Force, and Mr. Maloney is also on the School Facilities Task Force. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Alan, the task force right now is a pretty hot topic around town. What is the goal of this group?
Well, the goal of the group is a couple of things. I mean, obviously, it's what's the best long-term plan for the schools of Norwood, and, going all the way from the Willett, you know, pre-K, K, all the way up to the junior high school. And it can involve a number of things from, as an example for the elementary schools, maybe individual solutions for each school, all the way up to consolidating all the elementary schools into one school. Or it could be some non-structural solutions, such as looking at redistricting, look at grade configuration, look at potentially bringing some sped from out of district back in district to save us money. And, you know, we're looking to our architect, AI3, to give us some good suggestions which we could use.
So Tom, I know there's a kind of a diverse group on the committee. Can you tell us who's on there?
Well, we have, excuse me, Maya Bodenhofer and Patrick McDonough from the school committee. Sarah Quinn is a parent. Jim Hayden, the school superintendent. Paul Riccardi, the school facilities manager. John Carroll, the town manager. Alan and me, and I think I'm missing somebody.
Ted Callahan.
And Ted Callahan from the PBCC. Yeah, so it is a diverse group in every way.
And where, you know, what have you accomplished, Tom, thus far? What has the committee done?
Well, we've met with Mr. Dunlap 3 times, and in the most recent visit, he produced that massive binder that Alan has to his right on the table.
A little bit of light reading for us.
Yeah, he came in with 3 subcontractors, I guess is the best term, on a couple of weeks ago, and he has prepared some extensive review material for each of the schools. Analyses of the physical plant, some pretty good analysis also of the intention of the design of the buildings when they were first built, general condition, By the way, he was complimentary of the condition of the older schools, of all the elementary schools in particular, for the way we've kept them up, even though they're advanced in age. You know, so what we have is in good shape. He said, but they're still old. You know,
Right.
So that's the elementary schools. Junior high school, the Coakley, I'll leave to Alan to discuss.
The Coakley, again, what AI3 is doing is looking at all the schools and looking at what alternatives, in the end, what alternatives would be best suited, you know, given the specifics we have, you know, in Norwood and the specifics of the schools. And the interesting question we asked him is, you know, where do you think we're going first, the junior high or the elementary schools? And the interesting thing he said is that if you look at where you should be in the 21st century with schools, we're further away with the middle school than we are with the elementary schools, which is a little bit different than what I think people thought going in, which is, again, really interesting comment. And I'll be curious to see what they're going to be looking at for alternatives, because we haven't gotten to that point yet. As Tom mentioned, you know, we've done, you know, the siting analysis and analysis of the specifics of the buildings. We've done a demographic analysis, basically all the data you need to then go into the next step, which is to looking at different alternatives, looking at different costs, and then making a series of recommendations. And it isn't a recommendation specifically which is going to come out of the study. It's going to be a series of options, and then the school committee is going to pick the one which they feel is best suited for Norwood.
So the high school is excluded for
Yes.
obvious reasons. This is, and to just make sure that the public is really clear on this, this is not necessarily looking for efficiencies, but this is looking for our plan for the future, recommendations around what that should be.
It's a little bit of both. It is potentially looking at efficiencies, you know, such as things like redistricting. I know it always, you know, watching school committees, you know, when you hear that one school has 28 kids a class, another one has 14 kids a class. So there are options that you have there, but I think the primary focus is to the future. What do we need to make Norwood function as a 21st century school system? You know, is it structural? Is it major renovations? Is it replacement of schools? Basically, what is it?
Now, Tom, I know there's an upcoming opportunity for the public to get a little bit involved and hear an update coming up, I think, coming right here at the high school, right?
That's correct. It's Tuesday night, March 14th at 6 p.m. So that's this coming Tuesday, 6 days from now when we're taping. 6 p.m. in the George S. Yusevich Lecture Hall here at Norwood High School. The public is invited. I do know that Sarah Quinn, our parent representative, has reached out to the PTOs in the various schools to make sure that they get represented. So we'll see. It'll be very interesting. This will be a chance for the public to hear what AI3 has to say, but also be a chance for AI3 to hear what certain people from the public have to say about the situation as well.
Timeline, Alan, when are you looking at a finished report?
It won't be until after town meeting, without
Okay.
question. I expect to see something, at least a good draft in the summer.
Okay.
And then we'll continue to finalize that report, and likely by the fall have a final report. It's going to be some more. There's going to be some additional public input, you know, before anything is finalized.
Okay. And then, you know, is there anything that's off the table? Obviously the high school, but anything else that, you know, so any idea?
Nothing is off the table at this point.
Okay.
No, and in fact, and Alan has been emphatic on this point with AI3 that, you know, we had a timeline to start with, which is somewhere right around May as a completion date, but he was emphatic, and we all agreed that thoroughness is more important than a strict timeline. So if it takes longer to get the report right, by all means take the time, and so they're working toward that now.
So do it right, and it's
Right.
not like we're not going to have a lot to talk about at town meeting this time. So,
That is likely true, yes.
so let me ask you guys for a last word. Anything else that you'd like to add about the study and about the task force? Tom?
Well, just the first thing, how much I'm impressed with AI3, Mr. Dunlap, and the people who work with him on this project, particularly the information in that binder. I mean, they've already done a lot of work. It really is impressive so far. And I'm looking forward to next Tuesday night, again, here at Norwood High School in the George S. Yusevich Lecture Hall, 6 p.m. On Tuesday the 14th. But so far, we're actually very impressed with the firm and with their diligence thus far. So.
And let me add before we give Alan the last word, because we have to give Alan the last word, is MPA will be taping the meeting on the 14th. So if you're not able to make the meeting, and I'll put my shameless plug in, MPA will be carrying it on air after that, and you can actually load it up on your mobile device as well. Alan?
Oh, man, I'm excited about the report. I mean, there's a lot of issues, as we all know, facing the school department today. And we've been talking about budgetary issues, which are obviously important, but this is something really important too. You know, we really want to come up with something which is going to be good for the long-term health of the school system and the long-term health of the kids. And I sort of look at the budget and the long-term needs of the school system. They're really not different. They're really the same thing. And I'm hoping that that's the way people look at it, and we can get something done that's going to be beneficial to all.
Great. Well, on that note, I can tell you as a member of the public, we are all looking forward to the results of the study. So thank you for what you're both doing. Thank you for joining us today. And a big thank you to our guests who were on today, along with the great staff we have at MPA. Remember, this is your show, so please let us know what you'd like to see by emailing us at staff@mpatv.org. I'm Jerry Slater. Take care.